Hey everybody, happy full moon in Pisces. I'm making this video on, today is it? Wednesday, September 5th, right after the full moon in Pisces actually. It was just a few hours ago here in India. And you might be hearing the torrential downpour outside of my door. Very apt for the full moon in Pisces energy that we've got going on right now. And here I am in my kitchen to try to avoid the sound barrier of the rain. It's quite loud. So please don't mind my kitchen backdrop, but I kind of like it with my beloved guru, Satguru, looking over me. That's kind of sweet. So I actually kind of like this setting. This is my place where I hang out at night anyway. Drink some tea, get ready for bed, have some like late night snacks here, and make videos when it's time to make videos. So anyway, there's so much going on, and there's a lot to talk about, but I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet because it's late here, and because I think we're all a little bit on, at least I know I am, on overload for videos and media and wanting to keep up with. There's so much good stuff to watch online. I feel like there's so many people making amazing updates, and I only want to contribute something that maybe you haven't seen before, which is always a challenge because there's so much good material out there. I've been watching nonstop. I have a new Vedic astrology teacher here. I think I mentioned it a few videos ago. So I've been really trying to study and get as much information as I can, even when I'm not doing my one-on-one studies. And so there's just like endless material to learn. And I'm also studying Sanskrit. This is the Rahu and Gemini. And actually this is one thing I wanted to talk about in the video, which is how we have right now Rahu and Gemini, North Node in Gemini, answering to Mercury and Virgo. So talk about wanting to get deep into our studies right now in work. So I've been trying, many of you who follow me on Instagram have probably noticed how I've been talking about how I'm going to go in, I'm trying to get ready to go into silence. I've been procrastinating. We had a silent retreat that started here like a week ago. And every time I was like, okay, tomorrow, which is a very Pisces Virgo issue, because Virgo's all about our daily scheduling and staying on track and taking good care of ourselves, and Pisces is wanting to escape or maybe put things off. You know, it's a little bit like not wanting to be on a schedule, you know, wanting to kind of stay in like the dreamy realm. So I was really feeling that, and trying to get myself to prepare to get offline, and realizing just how I keep getting pulled back in. There's a lot of groups that I run, there's a lot of people I interact with every day, and there's a lot of just connecting points that are really inspiring and really soulful and spiritual in their own right, that keep me wanting to connect. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I just realized that it still can be a distraction. And so even something, especially because we have a lot of great spiritual material, but that can still be a way to stay external if we're still pulling it from the outside versus going inward. And I'm spending a lot of time going inward here, so it's not that. I mean, it's kind of impossible not to, because there's a lot of what we call sadhana that goes on here with meditations and chanting and pujas and selfless service and all kinds of opportunities to really go into your spiritual practice. And yet, even with that, even living in this kind of environment, which I'm very grateful to have been for the last 9 months now, crazy. My teacher said tonight after singing, she said, wow, I can't believe it's been 6 months that we've been in lockdown. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, 6 months since lockdown, and I've been here for 9 months, because I got here right on January 1st. I got to India right on January 1st. So it's been a very Virgo Pisces experience being here, and many of us are probably looking to where Virgo and Pisces are in our chart right now to see where we're trying to get balanced. Now, this full moon was actually in Vedic astrology, which I'm now, as I mentioned, studying, in the what we call the nakshatra of Shatabisha, which is translated as 100 doctors or 100 medicines. And it's a very watery star, so similar, even though it's considered the constellation of Aquarius in sidereal zodiac, there's a crossover because it has this very watery theme. And it's all about healing, which in Western astrology, Pisces is also very connected to healing. So I love to see where the convergence is with the two systems. You know, it's kind of like in psychology, I started off as a Freudian and then got really into Jungian psychology, and having to come over to the other side, it's like, you know, both have their value, but they, you know, I went into Jungian because I just felt like it took me deeper into the spiritual, and I feel with Vedic astrology is taking me more into the spiritual, especially living in this context. It's filling in what Western astrology didn't have for me. I'm grateful to Western astrology. I'm not abandoning it because I really love the psychological aspect. It's been really important for my work. But I like filling in the mythology and the spiritual context that I was missing, especially going deeper into my studies here in India. It's just a better match. So it's still to be determined if I'll do a full conversion. I'm thinking of, like, so funny, like my parents, you know, one of my parents are of different backgrounds, completely different backgrounds and religions, and my mother converted when she got married to my father, converted religions. And so it kind of makes sense that in my life I've always kind of had this East meets West situation, identity crisis, if you will. I'm about to have K2, the South Node, go over my ascendant, so get ready for a new identity coming up in the next year and a half. All Scorpio lugnas in Western ascendants in Vedic astrology will be going through this identity crisis. Of course, in Western it's still Sag for a little bit longer. But if you're a Sagittarius rising in Western astrology, you're going through identity crisis of some sort, or big change of identity, and getting more psychic and more spiritual. Anyway, but getting off track, let's get back to this full moon and the big theme. So I want to talk today about the mutable energies of the current times that we're in, and then we'll talk about the contrasting cardinal energies. As you can see from the style of this video, it's very much a mutable. Mutable is kind of a little bit all over the place, changing, spontaneous in the moment, not really like sticking to a set plan. Because there's so much, everything's mutating, everything's changing, and there's new information coming in, and you kind of just, it's like it comes through you as you go. So people with strong mutable energies, often they don't make a script ahead of time, they don't plot out exactly what they're going to say. That's more of a fixed sign kind of approach. When you have a lot of mutable energies, you tend to just wing it in a way, because everything's changing in the moment. So right now we're kind of living in that energy, because we've got Mercury, the planet of communication, in the mutable sign of Virgo, very analytical, synthesizing, and then we have our full moon in Pisces opposite the sun in Virgo. So that only leaves one missing leg of the mutable cross, which is Sagittarius, which is where K2, or the South Node, is. So that's bringing in all the metaphysical side of things and allowing us to cut away, because K2, or the South Node, being on the galactic center basically almost since the pandemic started, actually, we had that influence. So that's very interesting to think about, because it's been this really deep uprooting. Galactic center, or Mula Nakshatra, we call it in Vedic astrology, like the root. I spoke about that in a previous video. Uprooting something very deep in our lives, and we're uprooting structures. I mean, there's major uprooting going on, and unprecedented global shift of identity and values. Which is interesting. I was thinking about how when Uranus first went into Taurus a couple years back, a bunch of astrologers and I were trying to predict, you know, what to expect with that awakening of Uranus switching signs. And I'm thinking that's important this year too, because Uranus is playing a strong role, especially at the time of this full moon. There's a really powerful sextile, which kept me up late last night, with that sextile full moon energy. Whenever you have Uranus influence, you feel like the nervous energy, like a lot of nervy energy, and you feel really awake. It's like an awakener, and it's hard to fall asleep. When I had Uranus transiting my moon, could not sleep for months. It was horrible. And I can usually always sleep anywhere, standing up, walking, even practically, because I have moon in Pisces. No problem sleeping, but Uranus is one sign that'll give you insomnia, or planet rather, that'll give you insomnia. So if you felt really wired the past couple days, like you've had a lot of coffee, like a weird mix of tired and wired, that's the Uranus influence with the full moon, the sextile. But I was thinking anyway, so going back to the astrologers making the predictions, when Uranus first went into Taurus, we were thinking a lot about how it would change our values. One of the things I was saying is I think our values are going to radically shift, and little did we know, I mean, this level of change from a pandemic, I mean, whoa, are our values changing so much? And this is a real opportunity for us to go inside, right? This is a real chance for us to shift. It's a gift, as one of my favorite Jungian analysts, Marie-Louise von Franz, said, that we don't realize what a gift any kind of depression is, actually, like whether it's an economic depression or psychological depression, which she makes the note of how the languaging is the same. You know, how currency, emotional energy, it's very linked, psychic energy, it's very linked, that actually a collective depression is the only way we're going to wake up and change and grow and reassess our values. Like, we're not going to really do it. Human beings don't change unless we're forced to turn inward, and it takes something like a depression to get us to really turn inward. Otherwise, we just want to stay focused on the outside. We stay extroverted. So we need something like this, something as powerful as this, to get us to turn inward, to really look at what it is our soul needs. And this comes back to the 100 medicines or 100 doctors. What are those 100 medicines that we need right now? What is the special remedy? And this Shatabisha, the 100 medicines, is about, after you've tried so many different approaches to healing and you finally get that one magical potion, you know, that one magical elixir, that combination of elements, like you figure it out. And maybe something in your life recently happened like that, where you realized, I get it, I get what I need for my own healing. Or maybe it's a combination of many things. Maybe you realize there's actually like 100 different aspects or variations to this thing that's finally come together for you, like the pieces of a puzzle. I know that's been happening for me. And now, if you think back to the starting point of this full moon back in March, it's very close to when we had the beginning of the pandemic officially. I mean, who knows when it actually started? There's a lot of controversy about that, but the lockdown started in early March for the most part. The global lockdowns really started happening sequentially in early March. And I've been thinking about how much we've all been looking at boosting our immune system since then, which is very interesting. It's been this 6-month trajectory of how do we get healthier. And being here, you know, India was a place where I was always sick and I could never figure out how to stay healthy here. It was like people would beg me not to come back here because I'd always get deathly ill. I just didn't know how to keep my immune system boosted here because of the different bacteria and things, and it was just a whole different ballgame here. So this is the first time where I've been thriving here, knock on wood, J-Ma, haven't been sick. Could say it's, and I was trying to assess, what is it? Is it because I've been doing the Shiva Puja every day and chanting the Rudram and the life-giving mantras, you know, or is it because I'm cooking for myself now and all these healthy herbs and vegetables, and I have all this wonderful spiritual energy to boost my immune system. I'm in nature. I'm feeding crows, and Saturn's in my 6th house, so I'm getting a daily remedy for my Saturn, which usually causes health issues for me. So, you know, just to give you a few ideas, so you might be thinking of all the different things. Many of you probably have seen my little friend Chico, who actually, this is a great omen too, on the day of the 100 medicines. Chico like, just in the last 2 days, I almost didn't recognize him. I'm like, are you my bird? Because all the feathers came back. He had like these missing feathers in the back of his head. You know, he looked a little, we call pavam here in India, and meaning like a little bit, poor Chico, missing the feathers, you know. And now he's thriving. He looks beautiful. He's like all fluffy back there again. So it's wonderful. And so I think there's a lot of optimism around this full moon of getting our health back. Now, there's an interesting contrast. So here we've got all this mutable energy, that strong Virgo energy, Mercury in Virgo, connected to the Rahu, North Node in Gemini, making us want to like obsessively feed our minds and think and come up with new ideas and projects and analyze and get to the bottom of things and, you know, just keep purifying a system and just wanting to work. That's been my biggest challenge, to go into silence, because I'm like, I've got all these amazing ideas. I want to work on these projects, you know, and I'm talking and collaborating, and it's just so hard to stop that flow when it's happening. It doesn't feel natural. But that could actually be the best remedy. My Vedic astrology teacher said, actually what will really help is, he was actually giving the remedy of speaking gibberish to just confuse the brain, because he's saying it's going to get so obsessive while Mercury's in Virgo, and especially with that Rahu and Gemini connection, that you have to, like, in order to stop the brain from being on overdrive, you have to just start speaking gibberish to kind of get it to shut down, or, you know, calm down, stop processing, like to confuse it. So I was like, maybe it works even trying to listen to another language, because I don't understand Malayalam very well. I understand a few words here and there. Maybe that's the way I'm doing it, because I'm listening to that a lot all day. And it is like, it's not gibberish, but I don't understand it. So maybe my brain gets a chance to shut off. But also I'm chanting a lot of mantras, which some of them I know what they mean. Some of them I don't know. I know the essence, but I don't know, maybe that's helping, but who knows. But anyway, gibberish is another option. So point is, we can find ways to really, or we need to find ways to really calm the mind right now. And I think, you know, during this time, it's also really important that we have decompression time before we go to bed. Otherwise our brains will be like on overdrive. So we'll see. If I go into silence, it'll be interesting to see how, you know, I respond to letting go of all the stimulation, because there's this desire to want to catch up on all the things I haven't had a chance to do, because somehow the schedule here has been really busy. And you might have felt like that too. A lot of people are like, time is flying, and the time continuum has been so strange lately. Like, somehow it's like we're busier than ever, time's flying, yet our lives are seemingly more simple because so much is shut down. We don't have the usual distractions, but are we finding more distractions? That's the question. Like, have we just replaced them? And have we actually created more distractions somehow, because we're living more in a non-material reality? We're living in a more virtual mental reality, very Gemini, very Rahu and Gemini. So this could be what's promoting this feeling of time really being sped up, right? So something to think about. And we talked about, okay, so I think we covered the bases. The other thing with the Pisces Virgo is we're trying to, and with all the mutable signs, we're trying to go beyond the opposites, the polarities, because this Gemini Sag is where we get into all these heated belief systems, ways, you know, black or white thinking, polarizing opinions, religions, making things like a religion, beliefs like fanaticism. All of that can get really hyped up when we're in that Gemini Sagittarius axis, like preaching and I'm right, you're wrong, and we definitely have seen that going on. I don't need to give you any backdrop to that. I'm sure you can use your imagination for 2 seconds and think about how that's just running rampant right now. And then we also have, with Pisces Virgo, it's like we're working on that, you know, chop wood, carry water side of Virgo, with the Pisces mysticism and unconditional love and dissolution of the material, and the dissolution of separateness and boundaries and duality in general. Like, it's a place we can finally come into union and fusion. But the unconscious side of Pisces is, of course, when you lose your identity and you want to fuse and get immersed in something that's not healthy for you, or your lack of boundaries causes you problems because you forget that you have a body and you're too much in the spirit realm, and you're trying to escape the body, and that causes problems when you have that. It's spirit and matter issue with Pisces Virgo. And that's a big issue we're working on as we feel less and less connected in some ways to the material world, as we're living so much online now and less with bodies. We have to be very careful that we don't become disembodied. And I think that might be really up for us during this full moon in Pisces, to look at how do we find that balance where we're taking care of our bodies and we're not becoming disembodied tech zombies. You know, people make jokes about this being the zombie apocalypse and things like that, but we don't want to get so out there where we're just living in this digital, I mean, that's the last thing we need. We're grateful for the connection, but we cannot lose touch with the material world. Materialism, the hyper obsession with wanting to possess material items, okay, that can go. That's been problematic in many ways. But getting back to the earth and the roots and the real, it's been interesting to watch this pandemic, that the real remedy, speaking of the medicines, has been nature. We can still get access to nature for the most part. Nature's been the medicines. The 100 medicines for most of us have come from nature. And how essential, and showing us just how essential it is to get back to our roots and to honor nature, take care of nature, honor the animal in us, you know, and understand how disconnected we have become from nature. And this is not new, this is not news, but it just reached such a level that there was really no way to ignore it anymore, to keep consuming the way we were. And we have to continue to really look at this. Like my teacher also said, it's undetermined whether we're going to learn from this mistake or not. She gave a really beautiful speech on Onam, the celebration, the other day, and she said the only way humans learn is from pretty severe punishment, unfortunately. Otherwise we tend to repeat things, repeat mistakes. But if we can learn from our mistakes, there's hope. But we are hoping this was a big enough wake-up call, you know, that people won't go back to what didn't work. Let's see. I hope not. So, okay, this has got much longer than I expected, and just some other highlights. Of course, the other thing, last but not least, I want to talk about is Mars getting ready to retrograde. And if you've been wondering why it's so difficult to get traction or momentum, or you feel like you're driving with the brakes on, or kind of stop-start, wanting to do so much and feeling there's obstructions or, you know, obstacles in your path, that's the Saturn square to Mars right now, causing a lot of difficulties or, you know, delays. Even like I said, me going into silence, I feel delayed. I'm a Mars ruled person, and I'm like, I know this is what I need, but I keep delaying, feeling blocked from my goal. But I also realized, like, depending on where you have, for instance, the Aries and Capricorn houses in your horoscope, the life realms that those signs rule in your horoscope, those are the areas you're feeling the most challenge right now. It's like there's a real tension going on and there's a real struggle. Like, just to give you an example, for Scorpio risings, people with Scorpio rising or Scorpio sun in Western astrology, even, you could relate to this with sun sign astrology. For us, it's so much about our schedule, you know, and scheduling things. It's very difficult right now because we've got Mars really fired up, but about to go retrograde, so he's just really like not functioning at his highest. I mean, he's like impatient and he's got a lot of energy, yet he's also burnt out at the same time, and he's, you know, he's getting ready to slow way down, so he's really pronounced right now. And he, with Saturn really watching him and putting the brakes on him, it's like difficult to feel like you can get traction's the best word I could say, because when you're driving with the brakes on, it's like, you know, it's like you're just spinning your wheels. That's how it feels. So the best way to work with that square, I feel, wherever it is in those two parts of your chart, is just to take a time out and take a break and wait for the right timing. Don't force, don't push. For me, it's my schedule, so I already did take time off of my work schedule because I was having so many issues. As soon as that square started to come into play, scheduling was really challenging. I was having a lot of problems, and I had to just look at the reality of Saturn saying, look, time for a break, because if you're a workaholic like me, it's difficult to take a break. And even being in India, where I should be on a retreat, I've been working more than ever here in many ways. So sometimes when this is what happens with this Mars Saturn, you start to realize wherever the ego is, wherever the push is, wherever the drive is, Mars is all about our drive, it gets more determined and feistier and, pushier, with the backlash of Saturn being like, come on, like, let's set some limits, let's have some restraint. And so we're also collectively probably feeling that, like, there's a lot of pushback from Saturn. A lot of us are feeling impatient with the restrictions. A lot of us just want to break out and do what we want to do when we want to do it. And yet we still have to honor the limitations and the timing. Everything in divine time, and don't push it. Don't push anything. Don't force anything before the time is right. And, it's got to be like, my teacher also says, the 3 factors. I keep coming back to this teaching because I think it's really helpful. Right timing, right action, and then you get the divine grace. But it's got to be the right time, it's got to be the right action. This really helps me with this Mars Saturn square. I hope that helps you too. So just keep that in mind. And there's many other details we could talk about, but let's just keep it somewhat simple because that seems to be the theme right now. It's enough to process. Virgo's all about processing and synthesizing that which we could take into our bodies, and we don't want to overdo it, just like you don't want to overeat. We don't want to overkill with information either. So especially right now, don't overdo it. Keep it simple. Give yourself a chance to really synthesize what's coming into your life and really integrate and assimilate. That's a good Virgo word. Assimilate it. Okay. So thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. And I'll be back after my silent retreat with hopefully a refreshed and some new insights, because I'll have a lot of time to be meditating and thinking. I look forward to seeing you on the other side.